automation to check if a facility, to monitor security cameras. But he didn't really need to. His team didn't really need to write their own algorithms. They just use a service that's already available. I think they use a service from Azure, right? Um, right. It's a great area of research for computer science. For those in the academe, I still encourage people to take AI, but in the industry, the Philippine industry hasn't really caught on yet. Um, if you do pursue AI, know that the typical math and statistics being taught in most computer science programs is far inadequate. So you need to take a lot more math um, than what's provided by basic than a typical computer science program. And beyond knowing a lot of math is you should be able to apply it to model a particular problem domain. All right. Philippine government, I've participated in some consultations um, drafting its AI roadmap. So hopefully, we could see more AI support for AI and maybe government projects involving AI. Uh, let's hope. Let's hope for that. Um, then there's a lot of excitement about data science and data engineering. This is a great field. I encourage a lot of people to go into it. Um, it's uh, it's not so much heavy on computer science. It's not so much computer science problem, but data science is more being able to understand and model a domain. So a lot of having a deep understanding of, say, finance or healthcare, consumer goods industry or logistics, agriculture, and being able to model that mathematically or statistically, and then write code, but doesn't have to be CS level code as long as you can automate, right? It doesn't have to be computer science level programming. Um, so strong knowledge of the domain, strong background in math and statistics, but the programming requirements in most cases is quite simple. Okay, so in fact, there's a lot of non-CS. You'll have a lot of competition from non-computer science grads. A lot of doctors, accountants, business grads, scientists. Um, they go into data science, and then they learn just enough programming, such as Python. Right. Of course, data science is different from data engineering. Right. So for data science, you have a lot of competition from non-CS grads because you don't really need CS level programming. The more uh, the more computer science type of work is in data engineering. So this is the optimization of of collecting, processing, storing, and retrieving data. Right. So this is about being able to optimize, being able to suck in tons and tons of data and properly transform it to computations, make decisions, storage. All right. So these are the computer science and the software engineering problems, the exciting problems. Okay. So I'd encourage more for CS grads to pursue data engineering rather than data science. Um, then there's game development. Again, there's a lot of hype. If this is your passion, I suggest do go for it. The prospects during the pandemic, for some reason, even improved during the pandemic, and a lot of global companies are hiring game developers in the Philippines directly instead of going through outsourcing companies. They hire them directly. Um, and of course, the local companies, like the ones doing outsourcing, are also experience an increase in demand. Um, um, but just to note, it's not as high as most other outsourcing practices, like the the real the other areas of software engineering. Typically, writing software for banks or logistics companies or such as that. All right. Game development has never been as large in the Philippines and anywhere else in the world. Um, the opportunities haven't been as large as the regular software engineering opportunities. Um, Also, the salaries aren't as high as the regular software engineering opportunities. Um, if you have a choice between front end and back end, if you want to know which has higher salary potential, of course, there's your passion, right? You go pursue your passion. But if you're choosing, if salary is one of their considerations, salary and being able to advance quickly in your career, that it's back end is definitely early on. There was another developer who more senior foreign engineer that told me that the money is in the back end, and it's still so true today. There was this in the news recently. I think some sort of blockchain uh, company accidentally sent $90 million to people, and they're begging to have them return that money. So that just goes to show why back end engineers are paid so much, because the consequences of getting back end making mistakes in the back end are hugely consequential, right? Front end mistakes, somebody complains, he can't see a button or something, right? And normally the bugs are easily caught. In the back end, the bugs aren't easy to catch, and so a lot of them hit production, and they not only do companies lose millions or billions of dollars from back end mistakes, but also back end mistakes have killed people, like the software for the 737, right? Medical software has killed people, um, given the wrong dosage, or shot the wrong radiation out of these radiation machines. So back end developers are paid a lot more money normally on average than front end devs. But if your passion is but follow your passion, of course, you won't be able to succeed if your passion isn't there, right? Um, Also, back end has longer lasting skills. So I know friends, 20-year, 30-year experience in C++, for example. They started out C++, and as things moved to Java and elsewhere, or Go, or somewhat Kotlin or whatever, they were able to retain, because the skills are more learn. It's not so much about a particular technology or language. It's more about your understanding of concurrency, your ability to to model a domain, to tune, to optimize, understanding how to manage data. Um, but most jobs today, you need a bit of both. Even if you're a back end developer, some often need to do a little Angular and or React every once in a while. Um, Front end devs also need a good foundation in optimization, because more and more work is being done on the front end. There's more and more JavaScript. They need to be optimized, otherwise your browsers crash, right? Or it becomes very slow. Anyway, again, follow your heart wherever your passion is. In terms of programming languages, PHP has lots of job opportunities, but there's usually a ceiling on how much companies are willing to pay for PHP devs. But again, you'll never run out of job opportunities for PHP. They have the most job opportunities, but normally the companies are only willing to pay up to a certain point. Python is great for data science jobs. Doesn't really meet the requirements for systems engineering because of poor concurrency capabilities. Um, there's also uh, the language itself doesn't lend itself well to preventing invalid uh, invalid states in the objects. C++ has very interesting opportunities. There's a lot of Japanese companies doing things like for telcos and device drivers here in the Philippines. Um, Very interesting. There's very few companies doing it, but all the jobs are usually very interesting, very cool projects. C Sharp is a great platform. I think Microsoft is doing well under Satya Nadella on focusing on the enterprise. Exciting things happening. Um, uh, JavaScript, TypeScript, king of the front end. Uh, a lot of companies are also using it for the back end, but finding that it's a pain, right? Because it's such a pain, they normally don't want any juniors touching the back end. They'll only have seniors. JavaScript, because it's dynamically typed and all these things, doesn't lend itself well to preventing invalid states. Um, Java is still king of the back end. Uh, um, uh, of course, it has the same advantage. Java and C Sharp have similar advantages. They're practically cousins, right? Um, Twins separated at birth. C Sharp and Java. They have great concurrency, type safety. They have mature frameworks and libraries, both of them. But Java, of course, has overwhelmingly more libraries and frameworks. Java has the largest enterprise installed base, so C Sharp is gaining more adoption. Things are going great there, but far and away, the existing installed base of Java is there. So we'll expect Java to be king of the back end for quite a while. I don't know for how long, but that's the current state. Um, so let me talk about some of the skills that are important, that a lot of software engineering companies like my own companies, Orange and Bronson EduSuite, are looking for. Okay, so one is understanding safe coding practices. Right, the back end, it's hard to detect. It's hard to detect bugs, so we need people who understand safe coding practices to prevent bugs. All right. So normally I have exercises, code examples, and I have people figure out how code can be improved to be safer, but we don't have that time. So for example, here, understanding that in this situation, you need a defensive copy. Well, one is you validate the parameters, and that's one of the most basic ways to have safe coding. Uh, Parameter validation. And then here, one of the things that should be obvious to a good software engineer, but not commonly taught, is that in this case, you need to have a defensive copy. You can't just take a mutable parameter. You can't have a mutable field and I'll just take it from the parameter from outside. You should only have a copy, right? Even going outside, even the getters should only return a defensive copy, not return the actual field if the class itself, if the class of the field is mutable. Um, Very risky. Then there's prefer immutability, avoid making sure your fields are final, avoiding setters, uh, right? I have an entire 5 day course on these things. Um, a lot of profs have taken it, and I've yeah tortured them in 5 days to understand the safe coding practices. Um, Understanding design patterns and anti-patterns. Design patterns are recurring good uh, solutions, known solutions to recurring problems. Anti-patterns are common mistakes that people think are good practices, but they keep repeating it. All right. Again, I don't have time to go through all these. Each design patterns class will take to deal with it properly will take at least 2 or 3 days or even more. But I encourage every software engineer should understand design patterns and anti-patterns. Um, Cloud is it's impossible to have a decent career, especially if you're on the back end, without a good understanding of the cloud. And if you have a certification on the cloud, that certainly sets you apart. Uh, when CS profs interview me, hey, besides learning computer science, what should our students learn? What certification should they gain? I always tell them, encourage them to get an AWS certification before they graduate. That will set them far apart from all their competition. All right. Um, these exercises, but here understanding concurrency, right? Here, there's a race condition. I don't know if you can see the race condition. You have to understand how that something that works on your own machine because it's only you're testing it on a single thread won't work in the back end where you might have 1,000 threads doing the same thing concurrently. All right, so um, computer science programs should teach students how to write code that is safe even in a concurrent environment. Some CS programs teach their students how to create threads and how to create concurrency, but not how to write code that is safe in a heavily concurrent environment. So understanding concurrency is essential. So so many mistakes, so many deadly mistakes will happen if you don't understand how to write safe code in a concurrent environment. I don't have time to create to go through testing. Well, this is a test to a simple test um, for testing a concurrent test. It's a test that launches multiple threads to test the code if it's safe in a multi-threaded environment. Test and having said that, test automation is essential, and I don't mean testing the UI. Don't bother with things like at the undergrad level. Um, if you're a CS student, maybe if you're an IT student or IS student, you can bother with things like Robot Framework or Selenium. But for CS students, you need to understand JUnit. All right, so testing, not UI testing, but automated testing against for specific methods at the method level. So if you understand how to use JUnit, understand test-driven development, again, these are essential skills for any back-end developer. Um, Test automation and test-driven development, uh, because you write the tests first, right? You write the test before you write the production code. It influences your the design, and you end up writing better code because you write your tests first. You think about your tests first. Um, um, and it's also a great way to document your code because the first thing you look at is the code examples, and that's exactly what unit tests are, right? So it leaves great documentation for the people who are maintaining, um, going to maintain the code, right? So it's more reliable. I'm actually not a fan of code comments. I'd rather have uh, clean code and plenty of unit tests. Um, um, and of course, you can't have DevOps if you don't know anything about test automation. Relational databases, one of my frustrations. Many devs, in fact, seems like all the devs from any school are very poor on the database side. They don't understand how to write efficient queries, efficient schemas, when to normalize and when to denormalize, how to avoid deadlocks, how to have transactional integrity. Um, Terrible. Most of the database skills of computer science grads today are just awful. Uh, but again, this is essential to the back end. So you need to have great skills in the database. This will set you apart if you do. Um, right. Um, um, and then there's communication and leadership, which is half the success of any type of engineer. Communication and leadership. I think this has been emphasized over and over again by other speakers. Just a bit about one of my companies, Orange and Bronze. We provide more training than any other company in the Philippines. Um, and we sponsor not just training, we train other companies. We provide training and advisory service for other companies. We also provide training on design and development, leadership, and we provide sponsored certifications throughout your career. Um, we have the best developers and best mentors. Um, and Because we're considered the country's thought leader in software development. Um, so, uh, and we have a very objective promotion process. Even if you're the type that it's just about how if you're able to perform your metrics, uh, being able to deliver and satisfy the requirements of the client, and your growth in your skills and certifications. All right. So sometimes people from fresh grad to we've had some people in 6 years they from fresh grad to they've made it to senior, so they already have six-digit salaries 6 years into their career. Right. Our mission is adopt best practices and share them with others. If you're interested, visit orangeandbronze.com/careers. All right. That's it. I hope I made it under 20 minutes.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Legaspi. Mr. Legaspi is also part of our panel discussion later. So, any questions related to his presentation, we'll try to answer that later. Okay? So, for our next speaker has been involved in strategic capability development and digital transformation consulting initiatives at Accenture, IBM, Point West, Teradata, and now as Chief Analytics Officer of eClaro. Let us all welcome Mr. Sherwin Pelayo.
Good afternoon. Magandang hapon sa inyo lahat. Thank you for the invitation. I'm honored to be here together with the future workforce for technology for our country. So, what I'd like to discuss for you today is something that I'm really passionate about. Mon and Kailan actually started, some discussions about, the workplace skills, and then Kailan started about talking about some of the skills needed that is related to data. So I'd like to hone in some more on those. Let's talk about data. Let's talk about analytics. At the end of this short presentation, I hope that you do realize that you are actually, in fact, doing analytics already. And this is a call for you to actually do more, regardless of whatever career you're going to be, after graduating from your degrees. Okay, so let's start off by siguro mga konting kwento. Si Mang Isko is a yellow corn farmer. And gaya ng mga magsasaka natin sa Pilipinas, Philippines still primarily an agriculture country, masinop si Mang Isko in taking note of the things that he does every time that he goes out to his yellow corn farm. So may notebook siya, and he makes sure that he takes note of kailan siya nagtatanim, ano yung tinanim niya, anong klaseng corn yung tinanim niya, anong fertilizer ginagamit niya, kailan siya nagdidilig, at ganong amount of water yung kanyang ginagamit. Okay, so every day na or every time na nagtatanim siya, every time na nag-harvest siya, and all of the activities in between nire-record ni Mang Isko yan. During the harvest season, palaging tinitingnan ni Mang Isko. So, ano na ba talaga yung yield ko? Gaano kadami yung na-harvest ko? And since meron siyang notebook ng mga harvest niya for the past seasons, nakikita niya na may mga times na tumataas, dumadami yung harvest niya. May mga times na bumababa yung yield ng kanyang yellow corn farm. So, based on those na nakolekta niya over time, he's able to see some kind of trend or pattern na parang there are times na, dun sa mga times na ang taas ng yield niya, ganitong type of fertilizer ginamit niya, ganitong time of the year siya plant, ganito siya ka-often magdilig. At even yung positioning ng mga seeds, kung gaano kalayo, somehow nakita niya it actually affects yung amount of yield na nakuha niya every harvest season. So now, based on those that knowledge na may mga certain combination ng fertilizer, amount of water, distance planting, sabi niya, okay, kailangan kong baguhin kasi ayaw naman niya na nagte-trend pababa yung amount of harvest niya. So gusto niya constant, either constant or tumataas. So may mga binago siya alam na niya na ito yung optimal time to plant, optimal distance, and then anong klaseng fertilizer and gaano often siya nagdi-delegate. Of course, it's going to be a continuous process. So tuloy pa rin. Kahit na nakikita niya tumataas, syempre gusto niya pa rin niyang tumaas ng tumaas. So may continuous improvement na ginagawa si Mang Isko. So tuloy pa rin yung take down niya ng information sa mga ginagamit niya sa kanya yellow corn farm. So patuloy yung cycle. Yan si Mang Isko. Punta naman natin si Aling Lala. Si Aling Lala may sari-sari store. So may malit na tindahan si Aling Lala. Gaya ni Mang Isko, may notebook din siya. And every day, every time na may transaction, may bibili sa kanya, ino-note niya dun sa notebook niya, sino bumili, anong binili niya, ilan ang binili, magkano. At importante, tinetake note niya, nagbayad ba or nangutang, pinalista lang ba nung bumili. So, may ganun siya, every transaction, sa buong araw, nire-record ni Aling Lala sa kanyang notebook. At the end of the day, syempre, kinakalculate niya magkano yung kita niya, may puhunan pa ba siya kinabukasan, may natira pa ba dun sa products na tinitinda niya, baka naubusan na siya, may mga products bang hindi nabebenta at baka mag-expire na, kasi may mga products naman talaga na nag-expire. Since kinokolekta niya yung information na yon, every day, nakikita din niya yung trend ng kanyang kita. So, kinukumpara niya ngayon, yung kita ko ba ngayong araw na to, mas mataas o mas mababa kahapon, mas mataas o mas mababa same time last month or same time last year. So, tinitingnan niya yon kasi syempre, bilang negosyante, gusto ni Aling Lala na yung kita niya palaging mataas, di ba? Hindi siya nalulugi. Okay, so, tinignan niya yun. So, nakikita niya na may mga certain products siyang sinesell na mabenta during certain parts of the year. So, may mga mabenta during summer, merong mga mabenta during rainy season. Okay, so, based on that knowledge na nakita niya doon sa ninonote niya na information, alam na ngayon ni Aling Lala kailan siya magbebenta ng certain products during summer at kailan siya magbebenta ng certain products during rainy season. And again, gusto niyang magtuloy-tuloy na hindi na siya nalulugi. So, patuloy niyang nagte-take down ng notes every time na may bibili sa kanya. Ayan siya, Aling Lala. Medyo punta tayo sa sarili natin. Ito yung kwento ni Johnny at ang kanyang student allowance. Tawag ko dito the story of Johnny and his vanishing allowance. Okay. May allowance tayo lahat, di ba? Bilang estudyante. Siguro karamihan sa inyo, no? Or well, tingnan natin, kinikip track nyo ba lahat ng mga gastusin ninyo based dun sa allowance na binibigay sa inyo ng mga parents or guardians ninyo? Si Johnny does that. So, pamasahe, school supplies, pagkain. Siyempre, somehow, kailangan din niyang some form of entertainment. So, may mga ginagastos siya na ganung mga bagay. So, kinikip track niya yun. Tinetake down niya yung ganung klaseng expenses na ginagamit niya. Binibigyan siya ng mga magulang niya ng allowance every time na sumasweldo yung mga magulang niya, which is about around 15th or the 30th. So, quincenas. Kumbaga, nagkakaroon din siya ng allowance. Napupunan ni Johnny na, I mean, there are times talaga, there are certain days in the month na wala na siyang allowance, na ubusan na siya ng allowance. So, doon sa notebook kung saan niya kinukuha, nino-note down lahat nung kanyang mga gastos, nakita niya, okay, a few days after may allowance siya, kaya pa, pero nagkakaroon na ng yellow days, mga 5 days after noon. And then talagang 3 days before niya magkaroon ulit ng allowance, wala na, halos wala na. Pagdating ng 30th, wala na talaga. Okay, so, syempre ayaw nun na, ayaw ni Johnny ng gano'n. So, tinitingnan niya ngayon, kailan ba siya talaga dapat gumastos? Ano ba dapat yung gastusin niya para ang maging itsura ng kanyang kalendaryo pag gumagastos siya ng allowance is, may enough buffer siya na hindi siya talaga nauubos ng allowance. Okay. May problema siya pag 31 days in naman kasi talagang yung huling-huling araw medyo may problema pa rin siya. Okay. So pero at least na nabawasan niya yung sa mga aming nagtatrabaho tawag niya mga petsa de peligro na talaga yan. Okay. So na halos walang-wala na talaga. Pero at least nag-improve. At gusto pang mag-improve ni Johnny para totally walang red dun sa kanyang calendar of allowance. Kaya tuloy pa rin yung pag-take down niya ng notes kung may dun sa mga pinagkakagastos niya. Okay. So itong istorya ni Mang Isko, ni Aling Lala, at ni Johnny, hopefully ngayon nakikita niyo na parang ginagawa nila din naman to sa pang-araw-araw, di ba? May mga allowance kayo para kayo si Johnny. So iniisip niyo din yung ganito mga bagay. Ito actually sa analytics. Kaya sinasabi ko, sa simula sinabi ko sa inyo, na actually ginagawa niyo na talaga yung analytics. Okay? In one form or another. And itong mga kwento na to, actually totoong mga kwento ito na ginawa na nagkaroon ako ng mga projects dito sa Pilipinas na ganito talaga yung ginagawa. Yung si Mang Isko is a totoong yellow corn farmer sa Isabela. Ginawa namin sila ng isang project that will allow them to really maximize their yellow corn farm yield. Yung practice kasi nila noon is based on pamahiin. Bawal magtanim kung may pinanganak na babae sa kanilang barangay. So, yung mga ganon. So, we're telling them na may kailangan kayong information na nakunin para mas mataas yung yield ninyo. Aling Lala is a part of a cooperative na natulungan namin also to maximize their earnings. And Johnny is one of the customers of a bank na natulungan din namin so that they can maximize their savings. So these are real stories. These are real applications of analytics. Pero gaya nga sinabi ni Kellen kanina, very nascent pa, medyo bago pa rin talaga itong analytics na ginagawa natin sa Pilipinas. Kaya kailangan namin ng mga ng future workforce na kayo para lalong lumaki yung workforce natin in analytics. Medyo maging a bit technical, yung nakikita yung life cycle kanina, yung kulay orange, that's actually the data life cycle. Ito yung ginagawa talaga ng analytics. Analytics increases the value of data as it transforms data to information, to insights, and to imperatives. So as we go along here, recall kung ano yung ginagawa ni Mang Isko, Aling Lala, at ni Johnny in this part. Data is where we create data. So dito nagsisimula yung data. Okay, this is where we create the transactional sources, the birth of data. Every time nagtatanim si Mang Isko, every time na may bumibili kay Aling Lala, every time na may ginagastos si Johnny, that's the birth of data. Nagkikreate na tayo ng data. Pag nag-enroll kayo sa school, yung mga enrollment records niyo for every subject, that's the birth of data. When you now go to work, when you apply, when you fill up a biodata, personal form, application form, that's the birth of data. When you post something in social media, nag-post kayo sa Instagram, nag-create kayo ng video sa TikTok, nag-post kayo ng comment sa isang post sa Facebook, you are creating data. Okay. Once data is created, analytics transforms it into information. So, kinokolekta lahat ng data na yon, put it in a single repository. We want to answer what happened. Okay. So, gaya ni Mang Isko, Aling Lala, Johnny, anong nangyari? At the end of the day, tumaas ba yung kita ko, wala na ba akong allowance? So may mga ganong types of information, may mga ganong tanong na sasagot when data is collected and consolidated as information. When we go into insights, we find trends and patterns. So since marami na tayong kinokolekta, may historical data tayo, nakikita natin ngayon bumababa ba, may trend ba na tumataas. Dito natin masasagot yung mga question, bakit nangyari yun? So, bakit patuloy na bumababa yung kita? Okay. Bakit bumababa yung yield? Bakit palagi po nawawala ng allowance? So, when you consolidate all of those information, you're now getting historical data. Pwede nang sagutin yung tanong na why it happened? And actually, what could likely happen next? So, somehow you're going to be able to forecast anong pwedeng mangyari pa in the future. across ang analytics, yung cycle na to, isang cycle, into developing the various options. What should be done next? Siyempre, hindi ka titigil dun sa, okay, alam ko na kung bakit nangyari. Kailangan may gawin kang action para kung halimbawa negative yung trend mo, maging positive siya. Kung hindi ka kumikita, dapat ma-reverse mo yun. Alam mo kung ano yung dapat mong gawin para kumita ka pa. Okay? Some technical terms, data governance, data management, data security, data ethics sa data stage. Importante lang dyan is ethics. We need to make sure that we are using data for the good of people, for the good of society. Okay? Importante lang yun. Information terms like data engineering, data warehousing, business intelligence. And since we want to answer the question, what happened, we want to describe what happens, we're doing descriptive analytics. Sa insights, algorithms, machine learning, we want to answer the question, why it happened, that's diagnostic analytics. We want to answer the question, what would likely happen next, that's predictive analytics. Recommendation engines, optimization, simulation, we want to answer the question, what should be done next, that's prescriptive analytics. Each of these stage also is done by different roles in analytics. So you have a data steward, a data engineer, a data scientist, a data analyst, and sa gitna is the analytics manager. So these are 5 distinct roles in analytics and 5 distinct career paths that you can actually enter into when you want to do analytics further. So some of the similarities, data stewards are parang librarians yan. Okay, so although the past 2 years hindi tayo nakakapasok ng library, so baka namimiss natin mga librarians natin. You won't be able to get data unless in-approve ng librarian, ng data steward. Okay, tatanungin kayo niyan, bakit nyo kailangan itong data na to? Bakit kailangan nyo itong librong to? Kung may tanong kayo na ano kayang babagay na libro para sa gusto nyong pag-aralan, the librarian will tell that. Similar to the data steward, may kailangan nyo kayong data, sasabihin niya sa inyo kung anong tamang data ang pwede nyo gamitin. Data engineers are parang janitors, custodians. Ako data engineer, so proud akong tawagin sarili ko na data janitor. Okay? Yan ang gusto ko talagang gawin. Tagalinis ng data. Okay? Taga-kolekta ng data. Hindi gagalaw ang buong analytics kung hindi malinis ang data. So, importante function ang isang data engineer. Data scientists are parang detectives, investigators. Sila yung naghahanap ng trends and patterns sa data. Data analysts are business people. Okay? Sila yung nakakaintindi kung paano ita-transform yung insights na ginagawa ng data scientist into business language. Paano mo siya i-apply sa business. Analytics parang a sports coach or a cheerleader. Eh, siya yung bahala dun sa buong team, making sure that they function correctly and efficiently para ma-deliver yung isang end-to-end analytics projects. In terms of skills, okay, data steward, kailangan maalam siya sa business, industry, sa domain. So, it's either healthcare, banking, finance, retail, telco. Dapat maalam siya sa industry and business. And since a data steward goes into policies, governance, may legal background din siya dapat. Kasi siya yung gumagawa at nag-enforce ng mga data policies, data security. Yun ang trabaho ng data steward. So, hindi siya technical. More on the business and